So this goes back to a case where web designer Lori Smith has claimed that the Colorado LGBTQ inclusive non-discrimination law violates her Christian beliefs. She believes that she should not be forced by any law in Colorado to provide services to same-sex couples. She filed a lawsuit in 2016 because her web design business had refused a same-sex couple a commission for designing a website for their upcoming wedding. This went into the federal appeals courts, and she lost at every turn. So she's taken it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is looking at this as a free speech argument. They want to look at it not on any other grounds, but whether or not this is a First Amendment protected statement. Needless to say, things have gotten very heated in the course of this. One of the things that we've been watching are the Supreme Court justices who have fairly clearly identified themselves as conservative and evangelical Christians, and they have determined that their faith does play a role in how they look at cases. So this is, one of those situations where the justices are almost as important as the case itself, because each one of the justices does bring a slight bias that is very well known into this case. And some of that bias was seen as justices began to cross-examine and deal with some of the deeper issues of this case. Between Justices Ketanji Brown Jackson and Justice Samuel Alito, there was some back and forth with comments of a hypothetical situation that involved Santa Claus and the color of Santa Claus, because the case was being argued on the basis that the client was trying to capture the feelings of traditional marriage of a man and a woman. So Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson offered this hypothetical situation where a mall in Colorado is offering old-time pictures with Santa Claus, but they're using sepia tone to sort of give it that older look. But the people doing the pictures have said they want to exclude Black children and Black people from getting a picture with Santa because they are trying to capture the feelings of a certain era, meaning during a time when segregation was very popular. That led to Justice Alito coming in a little bit later and asking, so if there's a Black Santa at the other end of the mall and he doesn't want to have his picture taken with a child who's dressed up in a Ku Klux Klan outfit, now does that Black Santa have to do that? So this got into a real weird back and forth between a couple of the justices just trying to sort out this hypothetical situation of, whether or not this setting of an environment, this person wants to protect the image of traditional marriage. And the argument was, is that basis enough, to discriminate against a group of people? So it's kind of interesting how that one played out.
Yeah, and it was interesting to hear in that one of the justices made a crack about a Black kid in the KKK get up, and it was just poorly timed, poorly executed.
Justice Alito had a couple of different sort of faux pas like that in the last week. The biggest faux pas, though, came from Justice Gorsuch, who basically said that in the prior case involving a Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple's wedding, Justice Gorsuch said that the baker was forced into a re-education program to get them brought up to speed on Colorado law. Now, what was being referred to was a staff training on the public accommodation section of the law basically a training about anti-discrimination, which was at the heart of that case. Was Colorado in a place where it could determine that they could make a law which establishes who could and could not be discriminated against. That case was pretty much put in a position of saying the baker has the right to refuse. Colorado has the right to establish a law of who can and cannot be discriminated against. So Justice Gorsuch was basically saying, so essentially a person who doesn't agree with the standards has to be re-educated, and that language right there that's right into the Soviet Union. That is in communist China, North Korea. The idea of a re-education center or a re-education camp was the idea of bringing political dissidents somewhere, putting them through a torturous environment so that they would stop speaking against the communist government. So you could see what he's trying to draw the allusions to there.
Well, and the ironic thing there is what it essentially sort of kind of gets close to, at least, is, a conversion therapy type of a thing.
Right.
The forced conversion to a set of beliefs or whatever. And
right.
Just it gets a little ironic,
Yeah. Of course, the funniest faux pas from Justice Alito had to do with a situation where he was dealing with a friend of the court brief that was filed on behalf of the Jewish Coalition for Religious Liberty. Now, the Jewish Coalition for Religious Liberty was trying to support the Christian baker because the Jewish Coalition did not want to be put in a position where they would have to be doing something against their religious beliefs. Justice Alito offered up this hypothetical. An unmarried Jewish person asks a Jewish photographer to take a photograph for his J-Date dating profile. Alito pauses and says, "It's a dating service, I gather, for Jewish people." Justice Kagan chuckles at him and says, "Yes, it is." So he decided to change tact on this a little bit and says, okay, so maybe Justice Kagan will also be familiar with the next website I'm going to mention. A Jewish person asked a Jewish photographer to take a photograph for his ashleymadison.com dating profile. And it's like, holy wow. Did Justice Alito essentially just call Justice Kagan out as an ethically non-monogamous individual because the Ashley Madison website, the dating website, is marketed to people who are already married or in relationships and who may or may not have an ethical non-monogamous arrangement with their spouse. But Alito comes back and adds at the end, I'm not suggesting that she knows a lot of these things. I'm not suggesting. Oh, so basically, he says, okay, does the guy have to do it? Trying to get back to the hypothetical that he set up and basically buried himself neck deep in that shit.
Yeah, you mentioned Ashley Madison, and that I remember that. I remember hearing about that on a local radio show. That is a website for cheaters, and it's like, oh, yeah.
Wow. Well, Emily,
that was how it was marketed.
As a certified clinical sexologist, I am going to not abide by the term cheater. Ethically non-monogamous people are able to make arrangements with their partners to do what they want to as adults within their relationship. So,
oh yes, when you were talking about it, like you were saying that, like that's not what Ashley Madison is. It's not for ethically non-monogamous people. It's for people who are in relationships to find something on the side. That was how it was presented to me when I heard about it originally.
Right.
So, and that's why I say cheaters, because they're not.
But I wanted to jump in there and protect us from any and all harm because, we don't want Ashley Madison coming after us.
Very true. Very true. That would be unfair to classify that with a sort of not a shock jock morning show, but it was a comedy show. So
yeah.
As my basis for fact.